Hello, listeners. It's Gunter here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self-development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked #1 in Australia and #5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. This is the final podcast for Season 7, which went really quickly. It's also a moment when I want everybody to reflect on the tragedy that took place at Bondi Beach last night. We were all seriously shocked at what happened. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time expressing my thoughts and feelings about what happened, because many people are already doing that. Some out of a way of creating unity, but unfortunately, as always, there are those people in politics and government and in the media who are using this as a way of furthering the divisiveness and the divide in our community, which I personally find absolutely despicable. So with that said, let me move on to the wrap-up podcast that I want to work with in today's episode. So, like a lot of times, a year can go very, very quickly, and Season 7 was no disappointment in that regard. Now, if you've been listening through the year, you'll have noticed the thread I kept pulling on, and that is the micro. Your inner world, your relationships, the private moments where masculinity either becomes maturity or it becomes armor. And then there's the macro, culture, politics, economics, and the system that quietly rewards dominance and punishes vulnerability. Today, as I said, is the final episode of Season 7. Let's ring it out properly. And then I'll share with you a little bit about what's coming up for Season 8. What's happening with Making Good Men Great, including the very special edition of Making Good Men Great, Surfing a New Masculinity. And also why we're launching Patreon. So let's begin with the micro. In my view, the micro, me or you as an individual, is where the real action begins. This is, for some, the real battle. For others, it's the coming to a place wherein there is a sense of peace and calm and safety and security. So, even amongst the tragedy that occurred, we've got to realize that most men are not trying to be cruel. Most men are trying to survive. They're trying to feel competent. They're trying to be respected. And they are trying to keep shame off their back. So they do what they've been trained to do. They tighten up. They stop feeling. They try to control outcomes. They perform confidence. They go quiet instead of being honest. And then they wonder why intimacy feels like work, why anger shows up faster than sadness, why they feel alone even inside a relationship. This is why the work has to be internal and not ideological. You can't outthink this. You outgrow it. You heal through it. And that is the whole approach in making good men great. It's not to be a better man as a moral lecture. More like build a nervous system that can tolerate truth, connection, and repair. So here are the three simple capacities that kept coming up in Season 7. Firstly, awareness. Can you notice what's happening in you while it's happening? Not later, not after the argument, not after you've numbed out. Alignment. Do your values, your physiology, your behavior, and your relationships point in the same direction? Or are you living with constant internal friction, internal conflict? In many respects, psychodynamically, that is the basis for neurosis and distress and disturbance. Finally, attunement. Can you read the emotional reality of another person and respond to what is needed, not what your ego wants? If you develop those, you become less reactive, less easily manipulated, and more capable of real intimacy. And that leads straight to the macro, because the macro is full of people who never learned any of these skills. I want you to zoom out for a minute. The macro themes this year have been intense. Social fragmentation, polarization, rage as entertainment, certainty as identity, economic pressure, exhaustion everywhere. Last night here in Bondi Beach, it didn't alter any of that. It actually crystallizes it. You argue about politics all day, but underneath a lot of what we are watching is psychology at scale. There is one hard truth. A society that cannot do emotional development will default to control and potentially to violence. It will call it strength. It will call it common sense. It will call it realism. But underneath it, it's dysregulation dressed up as authority. So be particularly aware what you're going to be hearing in the media, in the digital space, and in society at large. So that's one of the reasons why I keep saying the micro is political, not because you need to post about your feelings. In fact, often think twice before you do that, because the way you relate to shame, fear, anger, and power determines what you tolerate in leaders, what you mimic at home, and what you pass on to your children. If you want a clean line from the micro to the macro, here it is. When men cannot metabolize vulnerability, they either collapse or they reach for dominance. And systems built on patriarchy will always offer men the same bargain. Trade your inner life for status, trade intimacy for control, and trade tenderness for performance. And this is what season 7's been about. It's been about refusing to accept that bargain. So, if I think about what did season 7 do? Well, from my perspective, it named the machinery. It challenged the cheap stories, the clickbaits, the simplistic representations of complex phenomena. It, season 7 tried to hold complexity without going soft. Because if we reduce masculinity as the way it used to be, we also lose the plot. That is nostalgia dressed up as virtue. And all those who profess conservatism need to accept that principle and rethink it. What we really need is a burgeoning, a healing towards maturity, a masculinity that can hold power without being possessed by it. And in my view, that's all about feeling empowered. Season 7 was the argument. Season 8, I'm hoping, will be the build. Season 7 has been the micro to the macro as a lens. Season 8 will be the micro to the macro with tools in your hands. Not a self-improvement theatre, but actual practice, emotionally and behaviourally. All right, so let me make a few announcements. So we've got Making Good Men Great, the special edition, or what I call the second edition of Making Good Men Great, Surfing a New Masculinity, co-authored by myself and my wife. And it's real, it's moving. This matters because it consolidates the work, it sharpens the language, and sets a stronger foundation for what Making Good Men Great becomes next. If you've read the earlier edition, think of this as the version that reflects the current maturity of the framework. When the video version of this finally goes up, we will post the links and details so you can grab it easily. Now, what about Patreon? I want to be very clear about why we're doing this. Most people do not change from information alone. They change through repetition, reflection, relationship, and accountability. So Patreon is not just a tip jar. It's a structure, a way to keep the work alive and practical between episodes, and a way for you to support the show so it stays independent. Now, here is what you can expect from Patreon. Firstly, the practical tier. Short weekly audio or written prompts, simple exercises you can actually do. Not motivational fluff, but real inner work. Secondly, the deep dive tier. Here we have extended episodes, behind the scene reflections, and teaching segments that are too detailed for the main show. This is where I will unpack concepts like the masculine introject, shame, relational repair, and what patriarchy trains into the body. Thirdly, the community tier. Live Q&A sessions, occasional group calls, and structured conversations. Not therapy, but a guided space where men can practice honesty without collapsing into performance. And for the women listening, you're not excluded from this. A lot of this work is relational. It affects partners, families, workplaces, communities, and you are also most welcome where it fits. Patreon is how we build an ecosystem around the podcast, not just a broadcast. So, what is in season 8? I'm going to be focusing on the replacement skills. Things like emotional literacy that doesn't become performative softness. Leadership that's grounded and not dominant or coercively controlling. We're going to examine intimacy beyond patriarchy, which means dipping into trust, consent, repair, and the courage to be known. So, transparency, authenticity, that's what we're going to be drawing on. And finally, the real thing that I want to focus always on is that the evolving self, which is the deeper question underneath all of this, who you become when you stop living a script. If season 7 was about seeing the system, season 8 is about building a different one inside yourself and then outward. Micro to macro, but with traction. So that brings us to the end of season 7. If you have listened this year, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't take your attention lightly. If this season has helped you name something real, do not let it stay simply as an insight. Pick one action this week that moves you away from the old script and towards the man that you actually want to be. And if you want to support the work, follow the podcast, share this episode with someone who will get it, and check out Patreon when the link goes live with the video version. I'm Gunter. I'm your host. I'm a psychologist, a writer, a speaker, a content creator, and a researcher. And this is Inspired Change. You know, on this show, we talk a lot about living with purpose, slowing down, paying attention, and being intentional about the choices we make every day. Because when we simplify the noise around us, we can better hear what really matters. Empathy, connection, and showing up as the best version of ourselves. That's why I'm genuinely pleased to welcome our newest sponsor, Distill Union. Their philosophy aligns beautifully with what we do here. Distill Union creates slick, thoughtfully designed essentials, wallets, key organizers, phone cases, all built with a less is more approach. Their Wally wallets, Ferris key organizers, these are everyday tools that make life easier, cleaner, and calmer. In that simplicity, there's space for clarity. There's space for change. As a thank you to our Inspired Change community, they're offering 20% off any product with the promo code INSPIRECHANGE. Have a look, try them out, and see how simplifying your day can open the door to something deeper. Visit distillunion.com and enjoy 20% off any product with the promo code INSPIRECHANGE. That's distillunion.com with promo code INSPIRECHANGE to check out.
Hello and welcome. We thank you for tuning in and promoting positive social change. This makes you a part of Gunter's efforts in transforming not only men's lives, but lives in general, and we are grateful you have joined us. This week on the global listeners list, we see a new placement for number 1. We would like to share our gratitude with our listeners in Australia. You made it to number 1 with the strongest downloads from New South Wales. But look out, the Northern Territory is catching up as our listeners in Alice Springs have brought the Outback to a strong player of positive social change. Congratulations! We also wanted to give a special shout out to our listeners in Philadelphia and York for bringing Pennsylvania to number 6 on the USA listeners list. Thank you so much for your continued support. We appreciate your efforts to support positive social change. I, Devonna Prinzi, the co-executive producer, and our showrunner, Miranda Spagner-Sapone, along with everyone here at Inspire Change with Gunter, wish you the most complete and joyous holiday season. And we sincerely thank you, as your efforts had made this year the absolute best. We look forward to great things for Inspire Change and appreciate that you take the time to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Please remember, if you want to share your story of social change, feel free to reach out to the show directly. Please see the show notes for our contact information. As always, thank you to each and every one of our listeners, and most importantly, keep inspiring positive social change.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.